I see some familiar names there. Good, okay. So hi everybody. I think we're going to give it a few more minutes just to let the numbers increase. We had about 160 registrations for this webinar. And I think the previous one we had on a related subject last week, we had about similar number of registrations and about 40 turning up on the day. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes to allow latecomers to join, and then I think I've been asked to kick things off. But so thank you for your patience. What we do generally in our webinars, as well as some of you will know, is if possible, we ask people to put their cameras on. We understand that some people may not be able to because of bandwidth or other reasons, but if possible, it's nice for us to be able to see the faces of the people that we're talking to, and it makes it a bit more friendly and a bit more sense of the discussion that we like to encourage, and also the participation that we think is very important for both our face-to-face programs, but also our online activity. So if you are joining us and have a camera and have enough bandwidth and feel it's safe for you to show your face, then please do, because it's much nicer to look at faces. Thank you, Joseph Wency. And yeah, much nicer to see you than just to speak to, what looks like a black square from what we're looking at here. So thanks, Joy. That's nice of you. Appreciate it. So couple more minutes. Let's see if we get the first screen. Hey, Safina. And let's see if we get the first screen filled out, and then we're ready to go, I think. We have, I think the registration span quite a few different countries, which is really nice to see as well. Most people, I think, will be joining from Indonesia, but we have much wider participation, which is good, because this issue is, as we've noted, I think, in the publicity, this issue goes way beyond the borders of Indonesia in terms of its impact on human rights, on climate, etc. Okay. Okay. What do you think? Should we begin?
Yeah, we can get started now, and I'll keep letting people in as they come.
Okay, thanks. So I will begin on behalf of the Diplomacy Training Program, which is an NGO affiliated with the Faculty of Law and Justice, based at based in Sydney, on the lands of the Bejucal people of the Eora Nation, and we acknowledge the traditional owners of the land we're on, and we recognise that their struggle for self-determination is an ongoing struggle, and that their lands were never ceded, and that the struggle for justice and for self-determination is one that they share in common with other Indigenous peoples in Australia and globally. So we welcome and acknowledge any Indigenous peoples who are joining us for this webinar today. This webinar brings together some very important things for the Diplomacy Training Program, some very important priorities for us. Our priority on the rights of Indigenous peoples, our focus on climate change and its impacts on human rights and the rights of Indigenous peoples, and the responsibilities of both governments and business in relation to human rights and the rights of Indigenous peoples. So we're very grateful to our Indonesian alumni who proposed this webinar, to ECO, to Swandru, and to others, for proposing this as our first Indonesia Alumni Network webinar. And we look forward to a good discussion that airs some very pressing concerns around the impacts of Indonesia's food estate on indigenous peoples in Indonesia, but also with impacts beyond. And we think also it's worth noting the timelessness of this webinar in the context of the preparations for COP30 coming up in Brazil, when we're looking at the commitments that governments have made, including the commitments made by the government of Indonesia in relation to addressing climate change. So with that, I say thank you to our speakers and to our moderator here, Eco, and to all of you who are joining us today. We look forward to a very good discussion. Thanks very much. Patrick, pass over now.
Thank you, Patrick. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this diplomacy training webinar about food estate in West Papua. My name is Eko Waluyo, and I am an alumni diplomatic training program and currently a program coordinator of Indonesian Solidarity Human Rights Organization based in Sydney. This is the first webinar in series of 3 exploring the food estate in West Papua, in Merauke. Merauke is in South Papua province, Indonesia. The international community is more familiar with the term of West Papua. However, the Indonesian government decided the larger Papuan region into 6 provinces in 2022. This include Papua, West Papua, Central Papua, Highland Papua, South Papua, and Southeast Papua. Merauke is located in South Papua province and serve as capital city of South Papua. Just to make the audience not be confused about the name of West Papua, because in West Papua also the name of another province in Papua itself. This webinar is being hosted by DTP Diplomatic Training Program and is Indonesian Alumni Network and partner with Pusaka. Pusaka is promote the fight for recognition, respect, and protection of the knowledge or abilities of indigenous Papuan people in managing customary land, territories, and forests. You can see later on their website, you can access them. Today, we will focus on the threat of indigenous people rights, biodiversity, and environment. Before I introduce our 2 distinguished speakers, a few housekeeping rules. Please make sure that your microphone are on mute, but please turn your camera on so we can have more pleasant learning space. If you have any comments or questions, please share them on the chat function. We encourage lively conversation, but we will ask you to be respectful to the speaker and other participants in your comment. Following the 2 presentations, each speaker to give speech for 15 minutes and then some question and answer. During the presentation, we will also share link to the resources, the chat, and everyone who register for the webinar will get an email with all this link. So, people right, biodiversity, and environment. The food estate strategy involved large-scale deforestation and lost biodiversity, promoted as necessary for national food security. It conflicts with Indonesia's international commitments on climate change, biodiversity, and human rights. The impacts of deforestation extend beyond Indonesian borders. With prediction, it will accelerate global climate heating. Concerns have been raised by the local communities, national and international NGOs, and UN human rights experts. We will all this today, and we are very fortunate to be joined the 2 speakers. Our first speaker is Ms. Laxmi Savitri, PhD. She is a social anthropologist and agrarian activist in Indonesia. She graduated a PhD from Kassel University, Germany in 2007. She served as board member of Pusaka Bantala Rakyat Foundation and supervisor of Vian Indonesia. And she is also an editor and writer at Isis Press. In 2013, she co-authored the book Cooperation and the Politics of Land Grabbing, an ethnography of the Mainrin people and the MIFI project. MIFI project is similar like food estate during the previous government Yudhoyono administration. In 2023, she co-published researchers report with Pusaka titled The Biopolitics of Food Estate and Metabolic Capture Nature People in Papua, highlighting how large-scale resources extraction disrupt human-nature relationship. And the second speaker is Dr. Budi Hirnawan. She is a lecturer at Triakarya School of Philosophy in Jakarta. He obtained PhD from Australia National University, Canberra. He is the author of his scholarship focuses the phenomenon of violence, especially literature and population in the fragile context in spectrum framework. To address the violence in the long run, his current research deals with religion and protection of civilians during armed conflict, a comparative study of Papua, Indonesia, Sudan, Thailand, and Myanmar. He is reviewer on Papua politics for Contemporary Pacific Journal. He published numerous books, articles, book chapters on his scholarship in reputable national and international outlets. He also extensive experience of working in Papua at Justice of Peace Commission of Justice of Jayapura, as well as with both in humanitarian organizations such as Franciscan International and International Committee of Red Cross. Without further ado, I would like to invite Ms. Lakshmi to provide us the impact of food estate project in Merauke on the indigenous people, where the project is one of national strategic national or PSN in Indonesia. The planned clearing for 2 million hectares of forest for the food estate project in Papua is anticipated to have profound economic, social, cultural, and political implications for indigenous Papuan. No, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Pak Eko Waluyo, for the introductions and also for DTP for having this very important discussion. I would like to share my presentations. Can you all see it? Can you hear me also? Is that okay?
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Just you need to put on slide view, I think.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, Merauke food estate is the oldest food estate projects in West Papua. It was designated as the food estate project since 2008, actually, and it's still going on until now. And Pusaka and I have been following the development of this project since then. And then we come into some kind of conclusions that we are seeing the biopolitics of the state is playing in this area. And as you may perfectly understand, the biopolitics is about letting people live, making people live by letting others die. But in terms of the food estate biopolitics, we understand that this kind of politics is shifting from letting people die in Papua, then to making deaths to them, and then making life for the powerful better and to live ever after. We asked then, why is it like that? And we believe that this is because of some problems of settler colonialism, because as you may see in the map, the 5 new special autonomy province in Papua is based on the customary territories, as they claim, or as they call so. But in the same time, in each customary territory, the Indonesian state already designated what kind of development project that should be in that area. And this is some kind of development project. We understand it as a so-called development project because it's all about the extractive industries and extractivism that is going on since Papua is under Indonesian governance. So we see that this site is a site of ongoing occupation, extractive economy, and elimination. Because first of all, land is always the central focus. According to C4, Center for International Forestry Research, 39% of the forest in West Papua is already allocated for large-scale mining, plantation, logging, and carbon trading. And from all 466 ethnic groups that claim to 7 indigenous people territories, only 3 that actually has received communal land title. So not only we've seen that this is a project to take land from the people, and the people itself doesn't concern to be very important to be involved in that kind of undertaking. We see that the process of marginalization and expulsion of the native Papuans are still going on until now. And therefore, the special autonomy province, the new one and the old one, we see just as an autonomy under Jakarta control. You see this area in Kerom and Bovendigul, for instance. These are the newly designated areas for food estate projects, besides Merauke, because it just designated as the West Papua food estate projects in Joko Widodo presidency. But this actually are the old extractive sites of oil palm plantations that has been there from 20 years ago. And if we see the research to examine what happened in those areas, it says that every sites of oil palm plantations in West Papua, which is more than 20,000 hectares, is always a site where poverty rate and stunting rate is increasing. And 2020, we see that in Kerom area, 15.7% of poverty rate is there, and also 20% in Bovendigul. And the other indicator is the stunting rate of 27% and 42%, which is quite high because the stunting rate for Indonesia is 21%. So food estate project is actually seeking a new frontier for new commodities like maize, like cassava, and also rice. But it is actually trying to set up a new business in old site extractive plantation like oil palm, because the oil palm itself has already been halted or not producing anymore. Especially in Merauke, the recent development of this area, because it has been going on since 2008, as I mentioned earlier. Now it is assigned as the National Strategic Project, and it becomes a renewable frontier where new people, new capitals are coming to the area. And also this time, the state itself playing a central role as a capital mobilizer in this area. So we are seeing of almost 1.5 million hectares of land is allocated for sugarcane or bioethanol industry, and also the revitalizations and new areas for rice paddy field. As you see in these maps, the area is actually not different from the years of 2010 until the left side of the map of this screen is the 2022. So the area is basically the same, but the corporations and the capital that is entering the area is changing all the time. And this time, Jokowi has invited some of the big capital owners in oil palm plantations like Marcus Sitorus and also Fangiono families to invest in this area. And we now see the situations of deforestations in the one area of where the rice, 1 million hectare rice is supposed to be established in Wanam area, in one district of Merauke, in the northern part. This area is supposed to be a road, and besides the road, there will be the 1 million hectares of paddy field. And according to the Nusantara Atlas that monitors the deforestation in the area, in August 2024, the food estate expansion to build 135 kilometers of road, it has already deforested more than 6,000 hectares of forest. And then the second side is the Merauke food estate rice expansion. The deforestation has also reached to 2,700 hectares of land, and this includes the newly established rice fields. And the third area, this is a bioethanol project. It also has caused the deforestation quite large. And for the total in 2024, from January 2024 until June 2025, we are seeing more than 20,000 hectares are being cleared. And it includes Melaleuca swamp, savanna, and grassland. So this so-called green economy project, the bioethanol for transition to the new energy is a fake attempt that actually caused the deforestations and climate crisis itself. So why this becomes a site that letting people die? We see that from 2012 until 2024, there are many ecological degradation and also social problems arises until now. For instance, during the third year after the first deforestation started, the communities who live around the project areas are suffering from water pollution and sago and damage and scarce game. 15 children at that time malnourished, and 50 children died because of lack of nutritious food, and the mothers themselves are in a very bad health. And there is also a start of prostitution and alcohol habit in the area. 3 mothers were found with HIV, AIDS, and then also the women started tobacco consumption, where it affects to many children and other women to suffer from respiratory infections and tuberculosis. And this tuberculosis is really become an epidemic in the area. And also on the other hand, the project is that was promising, that was spreading promise that they can give jobs to the people. They only employed as an informal contract workers and receive very low wage. And the same conditions are still going on until now. When I came back in 2024, it's almost like the time was frozen there. There is nothing changed, and what I've seen in the 20,000, and 2012, is almost as the same as what I saw into 2024. And in the same year, in 2024, because of Merauke food estate project is also recognized as a failed project by the state, so they try to expand to Kerom and Bovendigul, as I mentioned earlier. The most important pattern that shifted, that caused the malnutrition in this food estate projects, is the shift to instant food and the loss of nutritious food they actually easily get, that used to get very easily from the forest or from the rivers or from the waterways area in their villages. And this is not a simple shift from eating fruit from the forest and eating fruit from the kiosk or from the warung or from the sellers, but it is also changing nutritious intake into the body and degradations of metabolism, especially for children and women. So if we see into the statistic of stunting in Papua province in 2020, this is condition where children below 2 years old having a below average height, and they will have a long-term nutritional intake that is inadequate for their growth, and then it has a potential to slow brain development, and it has a very long-term effects that causing generational effects. And stunting rate in 2020 in Bovendigul is very high. This is the area of food estate project. It's 37.2%, and Kerom 25.9%, in Merauke in 23.7%, which is in Indonesia in average is 21%. It's actually also high globally. And the infant mortality rate in this area is very, very high. In Papua, it's 38.17 per 1,000 live births. And this is the highest infant mortality rate in Indonesia. And since 2020, 22 or 23, the involvement of the military is heightened, and we see this is the transformation from to let die into to make death, and this is because of the workings of military stations. Under the revised military law in 2025, the president issued the regulations that there will be three, and there is already three new battalions in Wanam, Merauke. There will be one new military territorial command for South Papua, and 200 and plus and more food brigade in Merauke. And there will be 24,000 newly recruited troops for 21 territorial command in all over Indonesia. So we see that only in Papua Selatan, there will be, then actually it's already deployed, 2,000 new troops that placed and deployed in the area of the food estate project in Wanam. What happened there is the mobilizations of fear and terror. And this kind of mobilization is becoming a mechanism of land and resource grab, because based on our research in 2024, we see that the military personnel trying to manipulate and successfully manipulated the customary leaders in the area to give the land for the military command to cultivate it into new rice field, because this project is also transferred not only under the Ministry of Agriculture, but also it's a joint program with the Ministry of Defense. And the Ministry of Defense, in that case, mobilized all the military territorial command to do some rice planting also, and to have land, and then to do some rice farming projects. And in that term, since 2020, the middle rank of military troops trying to seek land from the customary leaders in Merauke. And when they succeeded, they recruited local labor, and mostly women, unpaid, to work in this land rice project. And then they claim it as a successful rice farming project. And then they organize a grand harvest with the president and the military, the highest military command of Indonesia. And they also directly or indirectly facilitate transfer ownership from indigenous landowners to the migrant cultivators. And this is exacerbated the racializations situation that has already been worsening since this rice project started. And especially in the Wanam area, direct intimidation and threats are felt by the people there. So overall, there are at least four very devastating impacts. We've seen the drastic landscape change that caused deforestation, very, very large deforestation in West Papua, especially in Merauke. And there is also a deep internal conflict that almost reversible, cannot be reversible. And on the other hand, there is also an impact on bodies and women and children bodies. Malnutrition and new diseases like acute respiratory infections, tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS are now, it's almost like a common disease in the area. And because of loss of source of food, children now has to work too, and then left schools. We can describe that what we see now is the impact of generation loss or biocultural genocide, because of there is a cosmological ruinations. There is also corporeal sufferings that makes them as a living dead and living in the dead world. But of course, West Papuans, Marines, and many other ethnic groups in the area are not passive victims. They also organize or very organic and very powerful resistance in the area. They call it Red Cross or Salib Merah movement. And now it is documented by researchers and also by Pusaka. There are almost 2,000 Salib Merah or Red Cross in the area where they refuse to let the government or the military or the corporations in. And on the other hand, there is also an organized resistance that continue to grow at various scales. So this is my last presentation. I just want to say that we cannot see West Papuan people as others, because their survival is also our survival, and its death is also our own death. Thank you, Pak Eko.
Thank you, Dr. Lasmi. That was very moving explanation. And I note some point here. There's the development in West Papua, particularly in the issue focus on the extractive economy include like mining and so on. And more than 39 forests allocated for the mining as well. So as the consequences of the focus about the development in West Papua. This is already started for 20 years ago. And what happened with this kind of program is they can create the explosion of and marginalization of the Papuan people. So, and also the most important thing as well, she also mentioned about the development also some military troop in West Papua, either as the security apparatus in West Papua and also part of the food estate program. I think you mentioned about 200 more than food brigade as participate in the food program. As we know, human rights abuse has been going on in West Papua for many years. And this is the food estate, one of the program, and also the extractive development project in West Papua. This can increase the military presence in West Papua. And of course, they will have kind of human rights consequences. Here we have two speakers, Dr. Hirnawan, who is very long time to advocate about human rights abuse, and he will discuss about human rights implication of the food estate in Merauke. It's time yours, Mr. Budi.
Thank you, Eko, for your kind words. And thank you for the organizer, Diplomatic Training Program, and Pusaka to organize this wonderful series of webinars. So it's, and this is the beginning on maybe the long discussion across Asia, I noticed. If you don't mind, I might just share my screen, my PowerPoint, so you can see from your side. Is it visible from your side?
Yeah.
Thank you. Given that Mbak Lasmi has already explained thoroughly the details of this project, my role is sort of step back and try to think what's going on here. And just to, as a caveat, this is my work in progress, so it's not perfect, it's not kind of publishable, but it's kind of my attempt to understand, to unfathom what's going on in Merauke in particular, but more broadly in West Papua. I've been working on human rights field for almost 2 decades now, and then I sort of switched into more armed conflict analysis. And today I like to propose to participants here to approach this issue, food and energy project, not merely from the environmental lens, social analysis, or human rights, but from a new angle, which is international humanitarian law. This is kind of, as I mentioned, it's work in progress. So please feel free to say that it doesn't work or is useless and so on and so forth. So I would be very happy to take your comments. So my key takeaways are as like this on the 5. Sorry. The first, I use the concept of Achille Mbembe's Cameroonian philosopher that defined Africa as post-colony. It's not historical post-colonial territory, but it's a concept to cover, to make sense of what's going on with a territory, with society governed by colonial rationality in the post-colonial context like Indonesia and West Papua. Secondly, West Papua meets the category of non-international armed conflict situation under IHL, and the status applies to the whole Papua, including Merauke. And this has logical consequences for our analysis. Because so far, if we talk about Southern Papua, as if we separate the discussion from the whole context of armed conflict. The third, that's the third. And the fourth is IHL. To me, this is still tentative, and we can discuss that. To me, IHL is more effective than human rights framework to prevent state armed forces from penetrating civilian roles and civilian objects, such as food and energy project, because under IHL it's very clear cut. You know, the civilian objects and civilians should be separate and should not be penetrated by parties to the conflict, meaning state armed forces and non-state armed groups. And last but not least, it is time to act to stop the ongoing violence against the marine, not just to analyze it. That's what I think what we do. And we learn from Gaza. Someone in the chat box mentioned. I totally agree. People are talking about Gaza. It's time to act on Gaza. Just to remind us what's about the concept and how it is useful or not useful. I found it is useful to understand that post-colony is a situation or territory or context under control of colonial rationality on the Indonesian state. That's what I make of the food and energy project. It's ruled by the logic of chaos, as Balasmi already explained in very detail. You have the army penetrating the agriculture project, there's no rule, and all of a sudden the oligarch, the business entrepreneurs sort of govern the territory. And where's the role of local government? It's very invisible. So that's what BMB is called the rule of chaos. And the rule of chaos has the logic. The logic is to justify that the whole idea of colonial rationality, that they do not govern directly, they outsource the power of the state to private actors, as already explained very detailed on those businessmen and those names, private ends for both military and the oligarchy. And as we already learned from Balasmi, since 2012, the project, food and energy project, has been going on. It's more than 12 years. It's all about political improvisation and access rather than planning, because one after the other is based on the president policy. And at the end of the day, this kind of approach is to basically to authorize the private actors to operate with free rein. If in the first presentation we heard Haji Sam, for instance, is a private actor who happened to be very close to the power holder, the ruler, so he has all the access to the power. And last but not least, and it reflects on or resonates to the idea of armed conflict, is ruled by a regime of violence. I already mentioned in the history of human rights, and people in the room here, they have done extensive research and documentation of human rights violations. which not only demolish the Papuan people, but also their environment, notably the virgin forest, water, and land, which we already call genocide. And just very brief about what BMB means with indirect private government. If we learn from the history of colonialism across the globe, the colonial works through the subcontract or subordinates. They don't rule directly. They sit in London or in Spain or in Portugal and Lisbon, and they rule the world through the network. They don't rule it directly. So this is the idea of indirect private government. I would skip this, it's been explained. So if we understand the food energy project, we have subcontractors, we have oligarch. Subcontractor means those who work in the field, like the road workers, the small level of business entrepreneurs, and we have the military as already expanding, and the governments in different level, and the oligarch. As you can see, the marine is not part of the equation. The marine is just left out. So if we talk about food and energy project, it has nothing to do with the marine. They're just here. And this is already explained. So I come to the second point. Is Merauke in a conflict zone? The green arrows pointed the areas where the regencies are in a conflict situation at the moment, where armed violence is going on as we speak. And the Merauke with red arrows is down there. It's not part of the game of the violence as we see in the map. But I would like to step back and learn from the International Criminal Tribunal for Yugoslavia, which delivered the verdict, and the verdict is the fundamental of the all other decisions ruling after the ICTY. It's called the Tadic formula. It's from the Duko Tadic, is a war criminal from Serbia who was sentenced 20 years in prison. So then just very quickly, why is the armed conflict exists, whether there's a resort to armed forces between states and protected armed violence as we experience in West Papua. Now, when is it applicable? The criterion applies to all conflict, whether internal or international. It is not necessary to establish the existence of armed conflict within each municipality concerned. So if we have 5 regencies across Papua where experience daily exchange of fire, it doesn't mean that we have to give every single regency as an armed conflict situation. It covers the whole region. It suffices to establish the existence of the conflict within the whole region of the municipalities are a part, meaning that Merauke is part of the equation as a conflict zone. What does it mean? It means that IHL applies. And to be specific, I quote here, IHL applies from the initiation of such armed conflict, extend beyond the cessation of hostilities. So far, there is no ceasefire, until general conclusion of peace is reached. Or in the case of internal armed conflict, as we talk about West Papua, a peaceful settlement is achieved. Until that moment, IHL continues to apply in the whole territory on the warring states, or in the case of internal conflict, the whole territory under control of a party. And this is very important, whether or not actual combat takes place. In Merauke, there is no combat situation, but given this ruling, IHL also applies equally from Merauke to Maibrat in the Sorong area. And this is, as you see, then this is the area of where combat situation is taking place. And who are the victims? The Marin. I refer to the notes, ethnographic notes from Catholic missionary in 35, Father Vertenten, Petrus Vertenten, who is regarded by the Marin as a father. I mean, and not every missionary is given that title. And I quote here in his notes, Kaya the Marin is optimistic in nature. They hold the view that life is very delightful instead of worrying. They are happy with the world and particularly with themselves. The happiness sometimes is abundant and candid as long as their fear of magic, which overshadows them until today, do not destroy their lives. So you can see, without Food and Energy Project, without MIFE, without those all projects, since the beginning, the Marin is already very happy people. They don't need those projects that the government has introduced from different administration, from Jokowi, from SPY until today. And what's on the land? The land is not full of honey and milk. Milk, gosh, how come the dignified humans are interested in drinking milk from bees? Honey is the general intake for them, but their land is rich of coconut and oil, isn't it? Where do sago trees grow more to fulfill the daily need other than in the Marin land? And it's all destroyed now. As Balasmi already explained, all now under malnutrition. Children take instant food instead of the natural food because their nature has been destroyed. In their land, they have bananas, sugarcane, sweet potatoes, taro, breadfruit, and so on. Food are abandoned and can be grabbed only with little effort. So you can see in 35, when this first interaction between the Catholic Church and the Marin, they're already superfluous, they're already prosperous. And what we see now from the first presentation, they have been degraded to subhuman. And that's the idea of colonial rationality. But they do not surrender. This is also the story that we have to emphasize. The Marin never surrender. They use symbolism, they use human rights mechanisms, national, international. Like a few days ago, they presented the case in Geneva. They use constitutional court inside the country. They use indigenous people issues at the international level, and so on. So to end, I would remind us, quoting Karl Marx, that the philosophers like me should not only just interpret the world in various ways. The point now is to change it. So I think Marin is not far away from Torres Island. It's too far, even farther from Jakarta, where I sit now. It's closer to Torres Strait Island. But what's happening in Merauke, what's happening in Papua, has been going more than 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's been going for decades. So it's time for us to stop the violence, and as Marx says, to change it for the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Budi Hernawan, for moving explanation about the human rights situation in the context of the food estate in West Papua, in whole area. And there is some similar underline which Dr. Budi mentioned about military spending in the province and the benefit of the oligarchy who control the economic interest in Papua. And also, there's also mentioned about the children malnutrition because of the food has been destroyed. There is a similar kind of the human rights abuse in West Papua. Is not only the context of the military itself. So we found some question from Crystal. I think she mentioned about the Gaza with the Indonesian government. The Indonesian President Prabowo gave speech in the UN, and this very ironic with the situation in Papua, or I can say that very hypocrite. So with the situation in Papua, I just want to give some information recently that the Indonesian government, the trade has been increased between Indonesia and Israel recently. And also I think Budi already mentioned about the question of Gaza and Papua. Maybe he will be able to explore about the contradiction, the Indonesian position in Gaza and Papua. And also she mentioned about why there not any speaker from Papuan. Yes, we invited a speaker from the Papuan because we changed our time schedule. It was planning in August and we changed in September. So the Papuan speaker, unable to participate in this conference today because she has another commitment with community in Papua. So maybe maybe Budi Hernawan can elaborate, or but Lakshmi can answer as well to add some response. First, Budi.
Which question specifically?
A specific question regarding Gaza and Papua.
Okay. Thank you for the question, which is very timely and very interesting to compare both cases. Although in Southeast Asia, in particular, the question of Gaza is closely related to religious context rather than humanitarian or humanity context. Also in Papua itself, some people are divided between those who support Israel because Israel comes from the Bible, and others who support the question of humanity. First, I'd like to mention that democracy has in our history, and very often they have colonial projects. You name the UK, you name the Western world, but also the Asian world and the Pacific world, such as Indonesia. So Indonesia is not unique in the sense that it has a colonial project, which is Papua, as like the UK has a colonial project everywhere, and Israel has colonial project of Gaza. This is I think the first parallel. The second parallel is invisibility. It's quite contrast between the case of Papua and the case of Gaza. The third that I found quite similar is there has been a lot of analysis, exercise, examination, legal case between those two areas committed or conducted by different actors, by our friends in Papua, by our friends in Jakarta, globally. Now the question is how to turn those analysis into action. The thing that's still missing there is to mobilize people. So far, we experienced that representatives of Marine going to Jakarta for the legal battle. But I think the majority of Papuans are busy with their own daily lives. It's not unusual and it's normal. But the question for our participants here, mostly activists, academics, researchers, how to mobilize people to support each other, how to build solidarity across Papua, across Indonesia, across the Pacific. There's that I don't have the answer for that, but I just try to point out the missing link between our work in the field, our work in the court, but the general public remains distant, I would say. That's what we also experience with Gaza. So there's a couple of thoughts that I like to reflect on. Thank you, Eko. Back to you.
Thank you, Budi. Maybe Mbak Lakshmi would like to add some word.
Yes, probably just a bit, Pak Eko. Well, trying to make a parallel between Palestina and Papua worked only one time in social media when all eyes on Rafah exploded as viral in social media, and it was used by the Papuan campaign in Indonesia to make the same lens to what happened in Papua, and it worked very well, but only one time and that time. It seems that, as Mas Budi said, many I agree, it is very difficult for Indonesian state to admit that there is an internal colonization in Indonesia, and they not only difficult to admit, but also they deny that there is indigenous people in Indonesia. That's why the Indonesian state do not sign UN BRIC until now, and they argue that all Indonesian people are indigenous. So it's kind of internal denial from the state that things like this are happening.
Thank you, Dr. Lasmi. And there's one question. I just want to read this one. Maybe this last question. What is the best way for people, community in Australia and Indonesia to support indigenous group fighting for food sovereignty and ending the corporate government food project that are destroying nature and displacing Papuan? This one of the question maybe you would like to address, both of you.
Mas Budi, maybe you can answer first.
Sorry, please repeat the question again.
Oh, how the best way for the people in Australia to contact in support of indigenous people who are fighting for food sovereignty?
Thank you. That's the question of building solidarity across the board, and it's not easy. I think friends here, colleagues here already work very hard to build that. And the the contexts are totally different between Australia and West Papua, between the issue of indigeneity in both countries is also different. But I would say this kind of public awareness, like what DTP and Pusaka are doing now, is incrementally build this kind of solidarity. And but then this is a virtual reality, if you like, how the physical reality can be also engaged by our participants here. How this issue can be discussed in person with people of interest in the decision-making policy areas, for instance, in the Parliament of Australia, in the Parliament of Indonesia. So in this kind of venues might be we can explore. And also the coalition of civil society across the Pacific, they're already very active to raise the issue of food estate and conflict with Papua. But again, the pecking order of issues plays a role there. So the issue of media is it sellable for this media? Is it important to talk about West Papua in comparison to talk about Canberra? So, and about Trump. So this kind of various variable that we should look at, but I would support any sort of people-to-people solidarity. I'm doing a simple thing, organizing public discussion in your context, in your church, in your school, in your public fora, and in both sides. So that would create sense of proximity to the affected community. Thank you.
Thank very much, Budi Hernawan, and thank you to the two speakers, Dr. Budi and Dr. Lasmi, and thank you to everyone who participated in this conference. If you need further contact, you can scroll the chat room. There is some contact person for Dr. Lasmi and also the website of Pusaka. They will be able to answer your question and connect networking together. So time I give to Patrick.
There's a present.
Pak
Yeah.
Eko.
Yeah, sorry, just before we
I-
pass on to
Yeah.
Patrick, I'll just
Is
give
that possible?
unmute Rose to ask her question, if that's okay.
Yep.
Yeah, there is
Sorry, I didn't read it.
Kakarosa.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity given to me to speak. Thank you for Budi and also Ibu Laksmi for the presentation. Sorry, I'm late, so I missed the presentation from Ibu Laksmi, but I just want to introduce myself. I'm Rosa Moywen. The place that you are talking about right now about the food project, it's affecting my people. I'm coming from the Malin Anim tribe from Makleu. Our customary territory is the place where now become one of the hot topic discussion. So I'm just want to acknowledge also the presence of some of my colleagues from the southern Papua, which is Wensi. I see Wensi is here, and also Ferokanem, and also some other West Papuans who presented here. I just want to make comments around the way we look at the issue, or the way we look at the issue of West Papua, and also the food and many other big strategic national project that happen in West Papua right now. I agree that we should look at these cases from the perspective of post-colonial perspective, but also one thing that I want to highlight here is that we talk about a lot of action, a lot of action in terms of advocacy campaign that we have been doing for a long time, and it seems like there is no way out, or it's still a problem until today. And I think one big problem or key fundamental problem is that Indonesia never recognized that Indonesia is colonizing West Papua. That's the principal things, because West Papua, we have to, like or not, we have to agree that West Papua is now still under Indonesia colony. Indonesia is the colonizer. That's the first thing that we have to agree before we go through the layers of action and strategy. Because if we come without perspective looking at West Papua as a colony, then we will never find a solution to move forward to the solution by solution. For example, our people, my people, they went to Jakarta all the time with the support from Pusaka, Greenpeace, and other NGO to seek justice from the Court of Justice, seek justice from all the different mechanisms, but it didn't work. Why? Because the system is the colonial system. That's something that we have to agree first. If the colonial system, it still exists in West Papua, then any other way, either through the human rights mechanism or any other way through the court justice system, won't be work. Because we prove that what kind of movement we want to do anymore, because it's already, people already mobilized, organized. We see some people in this room, they are working on the ground. I see Dorus there. This is the young people who organize the grassroots, our community. They organize more, produce a lot of video, film, documentary from the ground about the issue. But what is the problem? We have the human rights lawyers put the case on the court, but the problem is Indonesia never acknowledge, recognize, or say that we are colonizing West Papua. That's the problem. And I think because that framework or the perspective is still in that way, then we will find it's difficult to move forward. That's the first things. So when we ask about what the Australian can do, or New Zealand, or any other countries in the world, or at least in the Pacific region, or in Indonesia, in Asia can do, is just to recognize that West Papua is now colonized by Indonesia. So then we can identify what kind of strategy or approach we can do. We go to the UN human rights mechanism, we speak about human rights issue. We went to the Indigenous People Forum through the UN mechanism, we speak about the Indigenous Peoples' rights. But when we speak about that, it's under the frame of Indonesia as a state and West Papuan as a citizen. And since Indonesia still in that framework that their mindset are colonizer, they will never allow their colony to be free or to have self-determination. Even we don't talk about political self-determination right now. We talk about the self-determination of people to manage their land and resources. And it never happened because they are colonizer and they never recognize it as a colonizer. That's the second thing. The third thing is we've tried so hard to mobilize and organize, but many of people who want to support West Papua issue, they don't want to talk about political issue. They only want to talk about human rights issue, environmental issue. But remember, when we frame West Papua as a colony of Indonesia, like or not, we have to talk about colonialism. We have to talk about the political roots, because that's the root cause. We cannot change the policy in Indonesia if we never talk about the root cause of that things happen, the problem. The root cause is the colonization, the occupation of Indonesia since 1963, since 1962, through the New York Agreement signed by the US, the Netherlands, and the UN. And then in 1963, the handed over of the territory from the UN. UN actually facilitate the handed over of the territory from from the Netherlands to Indonesia. So this all political process and continue with 1969 Act of Free Choice, and even before 1969 Act of Free Choice, we have the contract agreement signed between Freeport, McMoran, and Indonesian government. So this all manipulation of the political process and decolonization process in West Papua is the root cause of what we are talking right now. So if we want to finish, we want to help the Malin Anim people. I'm the Malin Anim woman right now, I'm speaking. If we want to help the Malin Anim people and the rest of West Papua, then speak about the colonialism that Indonesia continue doing in West Papua. The root cause of that is the political manipulation of all this decolonization process. We can, if you speak about human rights in West Papua, but you don't want to speak about the root cause, just forget it, because the human rights advocacy never will reach all the what you call it, the goal of promoting human rights, because the root cause is still there. Why West Papua still fighting? Why our students march on the street and keep shouting about self-determination, political referendum, and etc.? Because the root cause is all of this, the food estate, all the mining company, exploitation of natural resources, marginalization of the people, indigenous people. That's the impact of the colonization. If we never talk about the root cause, then we can work hard, try to finish case one by one. But I think as long as the colonization of Indonesia and West Papua still continue, we will face the same things again until Jesus come to the earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you very much for explaining this very moving word. And maybe Budi Hernawan and Dr. Lasmi would like to comment.
I cannot agree more with Kakak Rosa. That's the root cause and that's the root problem. So when I heard Patrick open this discussion and admitted that the DTP is standing on this land of death and so, and then also how, let's say, Canadian admit that they are also standing on the land of indigenous people. There is very beautiful, and I imagine whether something like that can happen in Indonesia. So yeah, I 100% agree with Kakak Rosa.
Dr. Budi?
Well, I
Would like to
already explained it in my presentation, so no need to repeat it again. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you for everyone for this. Thank you for two speakers and participants, and it's very moving the information. And there is some network. If you would like to contact, you can scroll. There's some NGO and also some person contact. And I keep the time to Patrick.
I'll be finishing up on behalf of Patrick. My name is Kai. I also work for the DTP. Thank you so much to the speakers and also Rosa for your comments. That's been incredibly insightful. I'm sorry that we didn't get to all of the questions today, but we will be holding our next webinar in this series on the 16th of October. So please feel free to join us then and ask your questions then. The next webinar will be focused very aptly on the human rights situation on West Papua. And also thank you so much, Eco, for moderating today. I hope you all have a lovely afternoon, rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you all on the 16th of October. Thank you.